Hey guys, welcome back to another RepPath Podcast. Today, guys, we're going to talk about something that I get asked every single day. And I see a lot of other coaches out there. Everyone's promoting 90 days, 3 months. I can break you in 100 days. So I get asked by a lot of my candidates that work with me, Joe, what would you do, if you wanted to break into this industry in 90 days? All right. And we're going to talk about that today, guys, because this is something that I think hits home to many, many of you out there because we're all trying to break in as quickly as possible. I get it. It's a frustrating process, but that's going to be the focus today. Before we get into that, as always, guys, anyone that's listening and viewing, please make sure you submit your questions from this moment on into the chat, and we'll address them about halfway through the show. Second, but most important, guys, the RepPath Academy is here. And you guys, for anyone that has not looked into this yet, please click on the link below to RepPath.com to learn more about my background in the Academy. You also could see the companies that we work with and the testimonials from some of the candidates that we've helped break into the industry. You could see that these are real people just like you guys, people without sales experience, people right out of college, people coming from nursing backgrounds. Everything that you guys believe, let me back up. You're not alone. And no matter what your background is, we can help you break in. But we can't reach out to you. We can't find you out there. We need you to reach out to us, and then we can help you. So go on RepPath.com, hit me up, book an appointment via LinkedIn so we could discuss further. But just reach out to me, guys, because I'm telling you, we're having success day after day with helping people break in no matter what their background is. So please check that out. And lastly, if anybody wants to see this content, this recording, or any other content that we produce, please go on my YouTube channel, the RepPath Academy, where you could subscribe. It's totally free, so you could get all this valuable content and all future content that we come out with. Other than that, guys, we're going to jump right in again to this topic. What I would do to break in 90 days. All right. Now, it's great, guys. I just want to set the premise that it is great to break in 90 days. We want to break in 9 days if we could. But if you really want this, guys, you have to commit to this. It takes time, and it also takes hard work. So even with the Academy, we're training people between our online modules and our live group training. We're averaging about 10 weeks to help people break in. Now that's fast, but it's a lot of work. It doesn't just happen. So no matter who you are, no matter what you want to do out there, guys, no matter what your background is, you have to realize that the faster you want it, even more work it's going to take. It's not going to just come to you. There's way too much competition if you think companies are reaching out to people every day or opportunity is just going to fall in your lap. It doesn't work that way, guys. It takes a lot of work. But for today, we're going to focus on, I don't care what your background is. I'm not going to assume if you have sales experience or not. This is how I would approach this, from jump. And one of the first things that I would do, okay, because a lot of you say, I want to get into medical sales. Okay, what does that mean? If you don't know what that means, if you don't realize that there's 4, 5, 6, subdivisions of medical sales, is it pharma? Is it device? Is it a capital equipment? Is it diagnostics? Is it distribution? Is it a SaaS healthcare related product? Because there's a lot of those out there. There's a lot of healthcare softwares out there that are great positions to have, but they're all very different. So if you go in with an open mind, you don't want to say, I will only do this, but be a little bit more specific in your searches, where for instance, you're going to focus on device and focus on ortho jobs. You're going to focus on device and focus on cardiology roles. Be more focused. Now, for me, if I didn't have any sales experience, say right out of college, whatever the situation where you have very little experience in any industry, I would focus on distribution. Okay. Medical distribution companies, guys, that's the first place you should look, because the difference between a distributor and for somebody that don't understand what a distributor is. So for instance, me and James can open up, J&J medical distribution company, right? we'll just call it J&J Distribution. And then we would contract with one of the big medical companies like an Arthrex, or maybe a Medline, where we have their products. So we're a distributor for Arthrex products. So we don't make the products, Arthrex does, but we get a geography, physicians that we can call on and get paid on whatever they use. Okay, so we're distributors for Arthrex products. That would be an example. So me and James, we don't care if you have a college degree. Sometimes it's someone that can just impress us, and we could say, you know what, I really like this person. I like what they bring to the table. I like their work ethic, and just go, we can hire you tomorrow, right? Now, obviously I'm exaggerating the timeline, but they don't have the red tape that a lot of the bigger companies have. So if you go to a bigger pharma company, where it's much more difficult because they typically want to see a 4-year degree, and they also want to see a year of B2B sales experience at least. Sometimes they even want more. So you need to know what your lane is. If you're going to focus on pharma companies when you don't have a college degree or you don't have any sales experience, it's going to be much, much harder. So you're going to get frustrated quicker than having a more focused, approachable, realistic opportunity like you can get in distribution. You also can focus on DME. That's durable medical equipment. A lot of times those companies are a little less stringent with their backgrounds and what they're looking for. So you can take a 1099 role. Now, I know a lot of you guys get scared off by 1099s because you want the base salary, the car. Well, I get it. I totally get it. That doesn't mean that these are bad opportunities. It doesn't mean that you can't go get experience. I know many reps that today, they don't have a job in medical sales, the W-2 job that they want, but they're going to take a 1099 role, for now, get experience while that, they search for that W-2, because each day they're becoming a better candidate. And that speaks of getting that experience. One of the things that I suggest to all of you, starting today, if you don't have experience in this industry, go out and try knocking on doors to get in front of doctors. See what it takes. See what it's like to get in front of a physician, actually go into the office, seeing when the receptionist rolls her eyes and goes, oh, another rep. Do that today. Start doing that today. No one has an excuse. I don't care, well, Joe, what product, or I don't want to lie about what company. I'm not saying to do that, but pick a specialty and start calling on doctors in that specialty. It's going to teach you how hard it is. It's going to really show you when we talk about access issues, how tough that is. Go to a hospital, put a suit on, put scrubs on, see what happens. You're going to see how they stop you, and ask them, dig deeper. Say, I'm a smaller medical company. Please let me know what I need to do. Start getting a feel for what it's like to be in these situations, because it's so much different than when people are teaching you something or telling you something than when you get out there and do it. Because no matter how much schooling you do, no matter how much you listen to mentors, me too, as a coach, training all the candidates at the RepPath Academy, I still can't give you the experience. You got to go out there and get it. Because as much as I can teach you, you're still going to learn more when you're in the field. So you have to do that. Starting today, that's a challenge to everyone out there that has never called on doctors. Start doing it. Start doing it. Try to get time with the doctor. You're going to see how many times you get rejected. But I'm telling you, if you can break in, that's a hell of a success story. So you want to start building some of these battle scars, start having some of these stories. So when you're in front of these people during interviews, you're that much more impressive. Because I'm telling you right now, guys, you're going to impress people just by showing that initiative. Nobody's doing that. Other individuals without sales experience, or definitely without medical sales experience, there's very few that are just going out there and saying, screw it, I'm going to give it a shot. That's the kind of people they want on their team. You think every time a rep sees do not come in there, do not enter, that they just go, oh, well, I can't walk in there. No, they push the envelope, guys. You always, when you're asked in an interview, because this question does come up, would you rather beg for forgiveness or ask for permission? And a lot of people say, ask for permission. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. It's the wrong answer. Okay. I'm not saying go out there and do unethical things or illegal things. No, but you got to push the envelope a little bit, guys. If you're walking into a section of the hospital that, the doctor's there, it's easier to go, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know, than to say, can I go in there? They're going to say no 100 out of 100 times. So this is to build that experience that you need. So everyone go out there starting today and make that happen. You're going to see the difference. Next, so again, the moral of that story is pick a lane and go full speed in that specific lane. Don't just start applying and reaching out to everyone. You're going to spread yourself too thin and you're not going to get anywhere. So be more laser focused. Next, I want you to reverse engineer your resume. Okay. And what does that mean? And I had even one of my mentors told me years ago when I started this business, he said, Joe, when it comes to reps, you want to make sure that they're not writing a resume, but they're actually building a mirror. Now, what the hell does that mean? Building a mirror. And then I finally, after he explained it to me, it makes perfect sense. So what I want you to do is start looking at, 5 to 10 jobs that you're laser focused, focus on those distribution if you don't have any experience, or whatever field you want to pick. If it's device, pharma, but pick 5 to 10, look at the job postings. You're going to see a lot of the words like CRM, like OR, or whatever words that they're using. It could be KOLs, OR access. I don't know, whatever it is, but start implementing that into your resume. So that's what it means by making it a mirror of what they're looking for. All right. Because those words are going to pop out. They're going to put in some of those search words. Now, I'm not sitting here saying create a different resume for every single job you have. Because what happens is, guys, I've dealt with a lot of you that you'll call me, you'll send me your resume, and then I'll go, I don't see where that experience is. You're like, oh, which resume did I send you? And then you become this totally different person. You're a marketing person. You're a salesperson. You're a tech person. Like, no, guys, you don't want to be these fake individuals because that's not going to work. But to pick some specific words that they're constantly being used in a lot of these postings and get them incorporated in your resume, that's what we mean by create a mirror of what they're looking for. It is very important to do that. We do this at the Academy. So again, one more time, if you're struggling with this, it's another reason to reach out to us because this is what we can help with amongst, dozens of other topics and skills that we work on. Next, you want to learn the lingo in this industry. Okay. So if you're going for a med device role, you need to know who a scrub nurse is. You need to know what a circulating nurse is. You need to understand what's sterile and what's not. You need to really have a good grasp of the lingo. When you're talking about an IDN or a GPO, you need to know these acronyms, guys, because if they're in your field, and you're asking too many questions, that doesn't mean you need to know everything, but you got to act like you're already in the industry. You got to show that. You should finish a conversation with someone and that they should ask you, what company do you work for? Oh, I don't work for any company yet. I have my own lawn care business. What? You're not in medical? It should be that kind of effort that you know your shit. That's the bottom line. Know your shit. You don't have to be in the industry. Of course, you're going to get stronger once you're in the industry. But if you show them that effort, that you understand the lingo, you understand the acronyms, you know what they're talking about, you could talk the talk, and the way that you do this is when you're reaching out to your reps. Okay, so when you see an opening, this is one of the most important things we teach, we harp on every day, guys. When there's an opening, or if you know of an opening coming up, which is even better, but say you see an opening for a distributor that's in your area, okay, most people, they want to speak to the manager, and that's great. Or you could speak to other managers, that's great too. But you want to focus on those sales reps. Really focus on those sales reps. And when you're speaking to them, you're not treating that as just try to get me as much information as possible. You want to have that call where you're selling yourself too. Because when they're explaining some of the challenges in the role, You want to start building examples of how you handled challenges in the past that are similar, whatever your job was. It could be like one of the biggest issues in medical is access. So everyone listening, have a story, because I have a client right now that in this opening in this section of the country, the access is awful. And every rep that goes into the role says the same thing. Well, in our area, the biggest challenge is access. No shit. That's everyone's challenge. I don't need you to tell me the problems. The company doesn't want to hear that. They want to hear the solutions. So for all you out there, before you even reach out to reps, have a story prepared about how you overcame access. It could be, and I don't care what your job is. I mean, you could be calling on, selling, I started selling air purifiers, and there was always an access problem to get in front of the decision maker. Some of you can work at clinics, and whoever the decision maker is, you might not be able to get in front of them, I'm trying to think whatever your role is, there's got to be a way that you could show your transferable skills to overcome access. Have a story like that prepared, because I'm telling you, that will impress any hiring manager, because it's showing that you understand what's going on in this industry, what are the challenges are, and how you're able to overcome them. So that's one right off the bat. But when you're speaking to these reps and you're asking about the different challenges, the more you speak to them, if they talk about a challenge that they say is a problem in your area, you want to make sure that you're going back and now you're thinking back to your previous experiences and how you were able to overcome that in a similar situation. Start writing these down. Start keeping track of your stories, guys, your success stories. That's what gets people jobs. They want problem solvers. Okay. So, and a lot of them have the same problems. They're different products, but a lot of times it's the same challenge. It could be a price issue, again, access issue. It could be a contract issue, but a lot of times it's similar shit. It could be the doctor likes your product, but he's already committed with somebody else, and there's a million different ways to show your transferable skills in your previous roles on how you overcame that. But write all that stuff down, because believe me, guys, there's going to be a lot of success that you have. The more you write that down and have those notes that you practice and you go back to, when you get in these interviews, you're going to cruise. You're going to be so confident that you're ready for all these challenges and you're going to outshine your competition. So the takeaway is, guys, provide solutions, but know the industry, know the challenge. And when you speak to these reps, get the challenges, but also be prepared to provide solutions, because you don't want to just have this as an information grab call and you're wasting 15, 20 minutes out of their day. You don't want to have that you don't want to approach these reps that way. You want to approach them where you're handling it like an interview, like a sales call, where you're going in there, you're finding out what the challenges are, you're expressing how you were able to overcome that in the past. And then you want to close these reps too. They're going to say, well, it's not my decision. I understand it's not your decision, but again, this is just like you would at the end of an interview. But after everything you learned about me, would you feel comfortable recommending me to your boss? Or is there any reason why you wouldn't move me forward with your boss? Close them. Get them to commit. Say, would you commit? Will you reach out to your boss, after this call and let them know that I'm the best fit for this role? And if they say no, guys, ask why not. You got to be a little aggressive here. You're trying to close them. Trust me, when they see that you're doing this, they know what you're doing. They're sales reps, guys. It's hard unless you're obnoxious. I'm not saying being rude. Don't be obnoxious. But if you're a normal person that knows how to talk to people, and isn't overbearing, isn't obnoxious, they're going to respect that you're trying to close them. Again, they want you on their team. They're going to tell the boss about you. They're going to go tell their boss that. So you want to make sure that you're trying to close at the end of these calls. You're presenting, you're providing solutions to challenges, and then you're closing. So don't just make calls just to reach out to people. There's got to be a real purpose. Look at it like, I don't want to waste anyone's time. And when you're bringing value, you're not wasting people's time. When you're not bringing any value and you're just saying, what else can you tell me about the company? That's annoying as hell, guys. They don't need to do this, but again, when you're providing those solutions to their problems and really trying to learn and absorb and evaluate, it's going to be such a different call, guys. And it's going to help you, exponentially on the back end when they reach out to their boss. Sorry, just checking my notes. And this is a little bit off of what we talked about before. When you're getting that knowledge, again, you got to act like you're already in the role. When you get those calls, again, if you're really doing it correctly and getting the right information, you got to act like you're in that role already, not as someone that's an outsider constantly trying to figure out what's going on. And by doing that, you have to create a business plan. So I say it almost every podcast. I hate 30, 60, 90s. I think they're dog shit. All right. But if it's a specific 30, 60, 90, if it's a specific game plan for that specific territory that is addressing the challenges in that territory, the contracts, the opportunities, the doctors that are working with you, the doctors that aren't working with you, the hospitals that your product is in, the GPOs that your product's in, the IDN that are using your products. All those things you need to put together in a real business plan and then make that into your 30, 60, 90. When you have, go through training the first, day 1 through, the first 2 weeks, now, first off, if it's generic, you'll see that as one of the first 30 days. People always talk about training. How do you know that that's the way your company works? When I worked for Boston Scientific, 30, 60, 90 didn't mean shit. The first 90 days was training. It was, 3 weeks in California, then 3 weeks in the field, then another 2 weeks in California, then another 2 weeks in the field. And then it was like a week, in the field, and then final exams. So the first 3 months was all training. So if I come in with a business plan that says first 30 days training, what the hell, that didn't show anything. But now if I talk about the individuals that I'm going to be working with, the people that I'm going to be in the field with, now that is so impactful. That shows someone like, wow, I feel like you already are hired. That's the person that's going to get the job. It's that kind of level of knowledge that you need. And you only can get it by speaking to those reps. So create those business plans. I mean, all the candidates that get roles at the RepPath Academy, I would say maybe 95% of them have done this really well, where they create a specific business plan. They're going in there and then they're actually showing them what they would do specifically for that role on day 1. It's so powerful, guys. So set yourselves to a higher standard to get that information, and not just, I reached out to a couple people and that's it. No, that's not going to fly, guys. You got to actually get information. It's not just having a conversation. It's getting information that you can develop into an actionable plan. Okay, perfect. Next. Again, I want you all to look at STAR questions. Now, they're everywhere. You can go and just Google this anywhere. STAR format questions. That's STAR for a lot of you that don't understand, or excuse me, that don't know the acronym. It's situation, task, action, result. Majority of medical companies, they love when you answer in this format. But go look at a lot of the questions and start developing stories based on your background. Practice this, guys. I can't stress enough how important this is. You need to have your stories. A lot of you don't have this down pat. A lot of you are great candidates. And when we do interview prep and I ask these questions, it's like, wow, there's some people that have been in the industry for years and they still can't answer these smoothly because they don't practice it. I'm not blaming them. I was the same way. I do this for a living now, so it's easy for me to say that. But when you got a million other things going on in your life, it's not something you think about. But if you really want these roles, practice your stories. Go look at the questions they ask. But guys, a lot of them ask the same questions. Tell me about a time when you had to convince a customer to switch from a competitor to your product. Tell me about a time you had to walk away from a deal. or you had to walk away from a customer. You could relate this even as a waiter, telling a story how you had a disgruntled customer, and instead of, fighting with them or whatever, you were able to walk away and have someone else, take over your table. I don't know. I'm making this up on the fly right now, but whole point is have those stories. Don't say, well, I'd never been in sales or I never been in medical sales. Nope. Wrong answer. There's reps that get in, there's reps in this industry from every possible background, everyone. I don't care what a person does. They could be a ballerina. I guarantee there's sales reps out there that did that in their past, and they could show those transferable skills. So make sure you have your stories, but that are answered in that STAR format, and start being able to verbalize that to someone. And that's what we do in the academy. We practice this, and people struggle and it sucks and the role playing sucks. Believe me, they become stronger and stronger each day by doing this. So make sure you're going out there and doing that. Next, guys, you can't be afraid of the rejection. I want you to go out and get rejected. I want you to get turned down. All right. That's a good thing. Rejection is good. All right. So you got to get used to that. This industry, again, it gets tougher because there's times you don't get rejected. They just don't even respond to you. And that's frustrating. But again, that's where you got to get creative and work on your approaches. It doesn't work the first time every time. You got to try different approaches to get access in these accounts. There's many different ways to do that. We're not going to talk about it on this call, but the whole point being, guys, you have to get used to that rejection. It's constant in sales, and it's really constant in medical sales, because a lot of times you're not even getting rejected by the doctor. You're getting rejected by the receptionist. You're getting rejected a lot of times with the doors locked before you come in. Sometimes you got to buzz in depending on the accounts, and they say, "Who is this?" "Oh, I'm Joe from Pfizer." "No, sorry, we don't see reps." I mean, this is what happens a lot. When you go to hospitals, again, there's challenges there. So you got to get used to that rejection. That goes back to go out there and start making calls. Try to get time with doctors. You're going to see how hard it is, but it's going to help you build that resilience. So you don't care. You're not worried about the rejections. It's also, again, going back to keeping track of your stories and taking notes. You're going to have more and more stories about rejection and how you overcame that. And it's going to be so powerful in those interviews. Excuse me. We kind of touched on this too, guys. Again, every call, you're closing. Don't take any of those calls with reps, with anyone you're networking with. You're trying to close to get a job. You're trying to close to get in the next phase of an interview. Get some commitment. And the reason why you want to practice this, because this is what you have to be doing as a sales rep. You have to be closing all the time. And this is a problem that a lot of sales reps get into, because medical sales is different. It's not door-to-door sales where you're selling solar panels. You're hoping someone buys it. They're either going to say yes or no. You're not going to go back to that house, at least not for a long time, if they say no. And if they say yes, you're not going to put solar panels on top of solar panels. You're not going to sell them multiple solar panels. So it's going to be a one-time deal. In medical, it's different. You could get rejected for years, and then all of a sudden something changes, and now you're working with that customer. So you want to make sure that you're always, again, have that sales mentality and always asking for the business. Because the problem that I meant to mention earlier is that a lot of reps, because they're calling on doctors so long, they get in the friend zone. And I did a post about this the other day. This is not a good place to be, guys. It's good to have relationships. Don't get me wrong. Relationships are very powerful. But sometimes you get too close, you get too friendly, and you'll start seeing reps, they go in there and they're bullshitting with the doctor about sports. Excuse me. They talk about politics. They talk about their favorite sports teams. They're talking about their kids. And a lot of time you're working with these guys, you're like, dude, we didn't even talk about one thing about business, and you didn't even try to identify another patient type, because there's always more you can do. There's very few doctors that you get 100% of their business. So you always got to be asking for more business. You always got to be showing more value on where your product can be used in an area that's not being used. So when you're during the interview process, when you're having calls with these individuals, again, you got to push it to the next level. You're not just having the call for no reason. Okay. It's about getting a job. Can they help you get to the next step? If they don't have openings at their company right now, do they know of anyone that has any openings? Is there a friend of yours that's hiring? Can you refer me to them? Can I get their number? Because you're going to see, guys, when you ask for the business, a lot of you, because you reach out to me and say, Joe, the process is going really well. A lot of nice people out there. Yeah, it's great. Are they doing anything for you? Really? Majority of them aren't doing shit for you. They're just being nice to you, because also being nice knows that I can get this person off the phone quicker. If they reject you or say, you know what, I don't think you have it, they know you're going to push back more. So by asking them for business, asking them to go to the next level and help you out more, have them to take an actionable step, you're going to see if you're really making an impact with them or not. Excuse me. Because if they say no, or I'm sorry, I can't, or whatever, that's an objection. Now work on your sales skills, guys. This is a real opportunity, because they're going to say that a lot. Well, I don't know anyone, or, it's not my decision. Who is the decision maker? Oh, my boss, Bob. Okay. Would you go to your boss and tell him that I'm the best fit for this role? Well, I can't do that, Joe. Why not? Again, this is where you got to handle those objections. So you want to get in those uncomfortable conversations, guys. Don't get off the phone. Well, thank you so much. You were so helpful. Yeah, of course you're going to thank them, but did you really move the ball forward? And if you want to get a job in 90 days, you have to be doing all these things, or it's not going to happen. It's not going to just happen just like that, guys. You got to be doing all those things. And especially you got to be closing for that next step, or that help from that individual when you're reaching out to them. Okay. I'm going to pause right here. James, any questions from the crowd?
No, Joe, I got nothing for you today.
All right.
I'm kidding.
See you guys later. We're out early.
We got Jeremy Goodison. If you have a moment, what's your tip to someone trying to get past a recruiter declining them on their education? Is having a 4-year truly mandatory, or is there a way to get an interview and be a potential candidate without one?
So the answer is yes, because again, we've helped place people without degrees. Is it easy? No. But if you do not have a degree, again, are you applying to companies? Or are you reaching out to this same recruiter? Because if the recruiter is telling you, if you're to me, this seems like one recruiter you're talking about, and if all they have are all roles that you need a college degree, you should know that. You should ask the recruiter that. I don't want to keep wasting your time. Just be straight up. Are you working in any roles where they accept someone without a college degree? And typically that's in distribution where they will do that. And there are some med device companies that will do that. Pharma almost never will do that. So if you're dealing with a recruiter that only has pharmaceutical clients, and you keep asking or keep applying to roles that you're not qualified for, then I can't help you there. No one can. You got to go where you meet the requirements. Because believe me, if a recruiter can get you hired without a college degree, they want to get you hired. They want to make money. But if you're going to keep going back to the same recruiter and going up against a brick wall, then that doesn't make sense. So my tip is read the requirements. Don't worry about the recruiter. Okay, you should see the requirements on there. All right, and if it says 4-year degree, don't apply. They're not going to hire you. So start focusing on those roles without a college degree, and that's what I talked about at the beginning. Be laser focused. If you got to spend 99% of your time in distribution companies, then that's what you do. Don't try to pretend that you have something that you're not, because they don't need to hire you. There's so many candidates out there that if you're not a fit, you're going to waste your time. So focus on those areas, and also focus on 1099 roles, because they definitely don't care about college degrees. If you go out there and sell, you're going to get paid. If you don't sell, you're not going to get paid. So it's no skin off their back. So, but focus there too, because it is harder for you than it is for someone with a degree or someone with sales experience. That's just being real. So I hope that helps. I hope that answers your question. And I don't want to be scaring you off, but I just want to be real. Like, you have it tougher without the college degree, but you can break in but you just got to have the right focus.
Robert Chalandini, for Star Stories, if someone has a clinical background like an MD or a doctor of nurse practitioner, then that's all they put. I don't know what they're trying to.
Well, all right. So if I'm going to just assume the rest of that question, so I apologize if I'm guessing wrong, but
hold on, he finished it.
Okay.
Who has a background and moving into sales, would you itemize out each function of the job description and then find a similar clinical story?
I mean, to an extent, you don't want to itemize it. You don't want to have War and Peace in a resume that, is 6 pages long and it's just, like reading a novel. Nobody wants to read that. But some of the key points, if for instance, if you're coming from a clinical background, the majority of the candidates that do well, and the reason why companies love nurses or other techs or individuals with clinical backgrounds, for instance, cardiology. So there's a lot of nurses, cath lab nurses, for instance, that do really well in medical device sales because they go from being a cath lab nurse to a clinical specialist in med device, and then they get promoted as a territory manager and can make, real money. And the reason why they do well is because they have that specialty focus. So whatever your specialty is, whatever the background is clinically, you really want to highlight that specialty. If you're in cardiology, you want to be talking about the electrophysiologist, the interventional cardiologist, the general cardiologist, all the individuals that you're working with in those in that setting in the cath lab, and also some of the key procedures that you've been a part of, whether it's a pacemaker implant, a defibrillator, whatever it is, doing ablations. Mm-hmm. See, these are all things that those trigger words, when they see them on a resume, that gets these companies and these recruiters excited because they know you're a good fit. So you don't have to list every single thing you did, but you do want to highlight those key specialties, definitely those key specialists that you're working with, because that's what's going to attract those specialty positions in device.
We have Ruth Miller. Hi, Joe. I haven't seen recruiters for med device. Can you name a couple?
Joe Licata, RepPath. I mean, there's tons out there. You could reach out to me, shoot me a DM. I could give you some of the key recruiters. But one of the things I will tell you, excuse me, I'm a member of First Interview, which is the best medical recruiting site in the nation, literally. They have all the top recruiters in med device and pharma that all work together. And you can't just sign up and become a member as a recruiter. They do a rigorous screening process where I know some really top-notch recruiters that still were not able to get in. So they don't just accept anyone. And that's a great thing because they want the best of the best. So we make that available through the RepPath Academy. When any candidate sends me a resume and we get it optimized, I get it updated in my system and also into the database of First Interview. So now everyone, all the top recruiters can see those resumes. So that would be my best suggestion. This is what we do with our clients to help them get that access to everyone around the nation. But if you need some names, you're more than welcome to reach out to me and I can give you some names.
We got what's the difference between distribution companies versus others? How would that job role look comparatively to others? For myself, my personal goal is to be a cardiac rep. Jeremy Goodison.
Jeremy, great question. The difference is all right. So when you're starting with a big company like a Medtronic or a Boston Scientific, their training is outstanding. They're very well polished. They have layers of leadership. You're going to get all the resources. They're great places to be. Now, again, they're tougher to get into, but once you're in, you're going to get all that. Now, when it comes to distribution, they're great places to be too. But a lot of times, again, it's the J&J distribution, like me and James running our own company. We can't provide all the same resources that a multi-billion-dollar company does. If it was just me and him, we're going to be wearing a lot of hats, and we're going to expect whoever gets that role that you're going to go in there. Sometimes you might not have a marketing piece. This is what happens sometimes with some of these, smaller companies that you're working for, some of these smaller distributors. But a lot of times they still do a great job, getting people trained, providing the resources that they can provide. But typically it's not as much as the big companies. So, for me, if you can get in through a distributor, get in. You're going to learn a lot. And a lot of times when you don't have all those resources, you figure it out on your own. So you actually learn more. You become stronger because you had to teach yourself. I'm not saying that's ideally where you want to be, because again, someone telling you exactly how to train you the right way, and that could be great too. But it's not always the worst place because you're starting out and you don't have all the resources. Being thrown to the wolves, as they say, you'll be thrown in cases sometimes when you're like, wow, I don't feel like I'm fully prepared, but you figure it out. And then when you do a next case, you're just a little bit stronger, and then you get stronger and stronger till you're a top-notch rep. So I think, to answer your question again, that the training is probably one of the big differences and resources, but you could do well in either opportunity comes your way.
We got Brian Kelly. What's the biggest mistake you see new people make in their first 90 days of job hunting?
They spray and pray. They just send their resume out to anyone and everyone, and then they pray that someone calls them back. We talk about this almost every podcast. That's not what you want to do anymore, guys. It doesn't work. It does not work. I'm sure a lot of you are listening in right now, and you're probably going, shit, I do that. Yeah, it doesn't work. There's too many. The internet is obvious. I don't want to sound like an old fart, but the past 30 years, how much, social media and the internet have changed the game when it comes to applying, that it's so easy. I mean, some of you go on MedReps, you click fast apply, and you see it. You could apply to 100 jobs in minutes. You go online, you just click. Sometimes it's a little bit tougher. You got to fill out more information, but you're applying to a lot of jobs quickly, and that's just not the answer. And a lot of reps do that. And then the other mistake that they make, like we talked about at the beginning, they don't even know what they're getting into. So someone that has I'm drawing a blank, who mentioned before about not having a degree, but an individual without a degree now is focusing on pharmaceutical roles. The odds of them hiring them are like 1 in a million. I never want to say never, because I'm sure there's 1 or 2 companies out there, but every company I've ever worked with that's a pharma company, they want a 4-year degree, and they usually want at least a year of B2B sales. That's just pharma. But if you're going to focus that and not know that, you're going to get frustrated and you're going to quit on the search. That's what happens. The first 90 days to 180 days, reps, they don't have the right focus, and they get frustrated because they don't get responses. They get rejections, if anything, but they don't move the ball forward and go, you know what? This isn't for me. Screw it. I'm going to move on to something else. So my advice is less is more, but be tenacious with the networking.
Natalie Voss, is it better to go through a recruiter or apply directly?
To me, the best thing to do is apply while you're networking at the same time. You want to have an advocate. That the best thing for me is to have someone handing that manager your resume. So another rep, for instance, that goes, hey, Bob, you should really hire this guy, James. I spoke to him. I know he doesn't have all the credentials on paper, but wow, was he impressive on the phone. His energy was outstanding, and that's another quick tip, guys. No one needs to get trained on energy and enthusiasm. Maybe you do, but trust me, if you come with that, you don't have to pay for that. Bring that excitement, bring that energy. I'm not saying be a cheerleader and jump up and down, but have that smile on your face, show that excitement, show that enthusiasm that you can't wait to get in this role. It's going to help you tremendously. That is so key. And I just drew a blank on the original question. I'm sorry, James.
It was applying through recruiter, apply directly.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So again, the answer is who I would apply either way. It doesn't matter, but it's more important that wherever you're applying, that you're building a relationship and getting an advocate in your corner. That's the most important thing, and it could be the recruiter, because a lot of times people impress me, and with my clients, that I have good relationships with my clients where they respect when I push back. If sometimes they'll say, Joe, no, we're going to pass. Like, no, I really, really suggest you meet with this person. They were very impressive because this is what they told me and blah, blah, blah. And then they go, okay. And it happens that easily, guys, sometimes. So your recruiter has a lot of leverage with their clients. I'm not going to say they listen to everything they say, but when they have a good relationship, they value their opinion. So sometimes they'll say no, then the recruiter fights for them, and then they say yes. So that's where I always think, if it's a recruiter or a referral, anyone that's going to go to bat for you, that's the best route.
Stephanie Cruz, how important is it to pick a therapeutic area you're passionate about versus just getting any role first?
Well, it's the reality, Stephanie, is that I commend anyone that is getting into this industry and has a strong passion since they were younger about, say, cardiology or neurology or whatever it is. That's great. Most of the time, you don't really know what you're getting into. When I got into pharmaceutical sales, I didn't have a passion for birth control and pain medications. You do get more passionate once you're in the role, because like anything else, you get better at it. You learn more. You start to become an expert, and then that it all kind of just snowballs, and it gets, your work ethic gets, you don't feel like you're working as much because you love what you're doing. That's the place where you want to be. I think it's great if you have an idea of where you want to go and you want to focus on cardiology, great. But if opportunities, present themselves to you, you don't want to say, nope, that's not what I want to do, 100% out. You got to give it some thought, because you do have to break in. And beggars can't be choosers at the beginning, because you don't want to pass up on all these opportunities. Because a lot of times I know plenty of reps that have been in this industry a lifetime, and they're like, I never thought I'd care about anesthesia. I got into it. Now it became my career and I love it. I can't picture selling anything else. So you don't really know. So it's great to be focused, but keep an open mind with some other specialties, because you never know that you can, eventually fall in love with them.
Alex MedTech, Joe, what would your daily schedule look like during this 90-day grind?
The daily schedule is, if you're not working and doing anything else to bring an income in, you got to be laser focused on the majority of your day is finding where an opening is. Number one, start there. Reading the requirements. I say it, and I know a lot of you roll your eyes like, Joe, who doesn't read the requirements? When you deal with as many people as I deal with, guys, there's a lot that they don't read the requirements. So make sure what you're applying to, you're qualified for, or at least remotely qualified for it. You don't have to meet every requirement, but you should meet at least half. Because if you don't meet half, trust me, guys, this is where the ghosting comes in and the frustration comes in. So I'm more worried about you keeping your enthusiasm. So start there, but focus on the reps that work with that hiring manager or work in that division. And I'd be speaking to them and learning as much as I can, like we talked about, but adding value on the calls, showing your transferable skills, trying to close them to push for you with that manager, and also building that business plan. So if you're only focusing on 2 or 3 jobs for the week, but you're doing all those things, that's going to fill up your day. Trust me. These business plans don't happen in 2 seconds. Excuse me. There's so much easy info out there that people try to get through ChatGPT, Google, everything else. And it looks nice, but you could see when you have the person that actually had the calls, got that specific info, made a specific game plan, 30, 60, 90 versus someone that quickly did it on ChatGPT. I mean, they're night and day, guys. You can't you can't pay for the information that I want you to get the information that you can't Google or Chat GPT and put that into a plan. That's where the majority of your work's going to come. And the only way you could get that is by speaking to reps. So that's, in terms of timing, people say it's a full-time job. You're going to put in 50 hours a week. That's bullshit. You got to spend a couple hours each day. And if you're not doing anything else, I mean, it should fill up your day. But if you're working another job, there's plenty of time to put this research in, put a plan together, have those conversations, and be able to break in.
We have Mike Device shadowing. How do you even set that up with no connections?
Device shadowing?
No, his name is Mike Device. So
he's asking about shadowing?
He's asking. He said shadowing. ... How do you even set that up with no connections?
I mean, most people don't have connections. This is where the networking comes in. If you're doing all those things, and I'm not saying it's easy with Device, because when it comes to shadowing, because there's a lot of restrictions depending on the institutions. A lot of the hospitals, if you're not credentialed, you're not getting in. There might be a surgery center where they'll let you observe, or they might say you could spend a day with us shadowing, calling on doctors, because a lot of times there's no restrictions for that, and they can introduce you as someone that's interviewing. But to get access into hospitals, that's very tough. But if you want to shadow, start building those relationships. When you're having those calls with individuals, close them to get a day shadowing them. Can you work with them this week? You're going to see they're going to clam up. A lot of them are going to go, I don't know. I got to check with my company. I don't know if I could do that. This is where the sales work. You're working on your salesmanship, guys. Try to get someone, and that's a great question. Try to get someone that you don't know to be able to shadow them for the day. Do it. See how hard? It's not easy, but the more you're building relationships, the more that you're showing them that you add value, the easier your chances are for them to say yes. So that's my suggestion. When you're having those conversations, you should be selling yourself, showing your transferable skills, showing how you're a problem solver, and you want to close to get a day to shadow them. And if not, again, what are the objections? Why? And you got to handle those objections and keep pushing forward. But most reps, just so you know, don't know someone. It's not like everyone has a relationship in this industry. And shadowing is great too, guys. It's great, but that's not the thing that gets people jobs. It's not just, I shadowed with a couple of reps. That's great. But what did it do to really help you get to the next level? Because there are some nice reps out there that'll say, yeah, I could spend a couple hours with you and introduce you to a few doctors. Like, they might do that, but did it really help you get a job? So I'm be more impressed by the reps that call people they don't know, that there is an opening, that they show that they're a great fit, that they show those transferable skills, and then they close them for a ride along with them. That's impressive. That's what I want to see. And you can do it, but you got to do it by getting on the phone with these people first. And there's got to be an opening at that company, because they're going to be less likely to want to help you if there's no openings in their division, because then it's just wasting their time.
I got Rachel Chen. Coming from clinical nursing, should I lead with my clinical experience or downplay it to not seem overqualified?
Oh, absolutely lead with that. That's your strength. Lead with it. That's what you worked on. That's what your experience, all your hard work came from. Talk about that. It's okay to brag about what you know in the clinical settings that you've excelled in. 1,000%. There's a difference, guys, between being humble, and also being proud of what you accomplished. You don't want to, you're there to tell them what you've done. You can't go in there and just not say a word in an interview and then walk out. And why would they even bring you in? You're supposed to talk about what you're good at. So definitely lead with that.
I have Michelle Phyllis, I guess is how you pronounce it. What CRM skills are actually useful to learn before getting hired?
I mean, CRM skills, guys, that's not something, unless you have a a company that has Salesforce or has another CRM product, that you learn by actually working the product. I mean, you could probably get CRM for dummies or Salesforce for dummies and do your research, but the real way to learn it is by utilizing it, in the field. Because most reps will tell you, like when Salesforce first came out, reps hated Salesforce. It was another way to track them. It was more note taking, more admin work. They didn't want to use that shit, but it's more and more mandatory now to get better at using it. But really it's the companies aren't going to be so hung up on that. Some ask, which CRM did you use? They want familiarity with certain ones. If you can make yourself familiar with Salesforce, that I think would be your best bet to make yourself a stronger candidate. So whatever that takes on your end, owning your own development, doing whatever research, on online, Googling, YouTubing different videos, whatever that is, get familiar with Salesforce because the majority of the companies, that's what they have.
We have Devon Drem. How do you find out which companies have good training programs for newbies?
Well, and again, that's what the conversations happen, guys. So, you don't want to just reach out to companies that don't have openings. Okay. You could do that, spend the next 20 years of your life and still not scratch the surface. So when you have an opening that you're interested in, that you're qualified for, that's when you're having those conversations with those reps. You're finding out about the training. That's the best way to do it. Just researching which companies have the best training. I mean, typically all the bigger companies, they typically have better training because they have more resources, but you get a job there, great. You get a job at Pfizer, great. Boston Scientific, great. But some of these no-name companies, the only way to really know is by speaking to the reps that went through it.
And then the last question I have is Karen O'Sullivan. Joe, are there any red flags to watch for when interviewing with smaller med device companies?
Yeah, the first thing I would look for is when you go on LinkedIn and you're reaching out to these reps again. Again, we're following the same process, guys. You're going to learn a lot doing this repetition. Look at the tenure that they've been there for. So if you have a company that's been around 30 years or even 10 years and all the reps have been there within 2 years, a year, 6 months, that's a red flag. But if you have companies that you see the tenure of the reps are 5, 10, 15 years, that's a great sign. Because people don't stay at places that suck. It's that simple. When people are treated well, companies do the right thing, they stay. And that's a great sign. So I would look at the tenure of those reps when you're doing your research.
That's all I got for you today, Joe.
That's it. Awesome, man. Well, again, thank you, James. A lot of great questions, guys. So I really, really appreciate all the input and all the interaction. It just, it helps me and it makes me become better. But I want to help your real challenges that you're having out there. So again, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for listening in. One more reminder, guys. Again, the RepPath Academy. Go on RepPath.com. Send me a DM. Whatever you want to learn. But if you're struggling, if you're constantly getting ghosted, if you're not getting past that first or second round, or even you get to the last round, but you never close the deal, there's many different things that could be going wrong. You don't want to just say, well, it's probably my resume, or I just got to work on interviewing. Guys, it could be so many things. I mean, I've seen so many reps, they never even looked at their LinkedIn profile, and that needed a ton of work. So we're going to work on everything. We're going to cover everything for you to help you break in as quickly as possible. So please go on RepPath.com, shoot me a DM, and we'll get you signed up. And lastly, for any lobby members out there, please submit the promo code Licata in the bottom left-hand corner. That's LICATA. Submit that whenever you reach out to me. If you're looking to sign up for the Academy, if you're looking for training, so you can get additional discounts. So please give that promo code Licata, LICATA. And that's it. Other than that, guys, This is our last session for the week. So our next one will be Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Every Monday and Wednesday at the same time, 3 p.m. Eastern. Thank you again for joining, and I'll see you next week. Take care.